Fill your day with joy and happiness here on 90.9 FM, Radio Baha'i. Streaming at radiobaha'i.us.
Sending you love, peace, and unity. This is 90.9 FM, Radio Baha'i, WLGI, streaming at radiobaha'i.us. It is yours truly, TJ Jones, and I have some special guests with me here on today. And we have a guest, Ms. Linder Renae, to talk to us a little bit about her book, If You Love Me. And we have a friend to the station, one of my favorite people to talk to, Mr. Steve Williams. How y'all doing today?
Doing well, TJ. Doing well. Thank you.
Appreciate
and
you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Speaking it if you love me.
Exactly.
Exactly. And thank you for the opportunity for being here.
Thank
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. We're going to talk a little bit about your book, of course. But before we get started, I want to you all to introduce yourself. I'll start with you, Mr. Williams.
Well, as you say, I'm a friend of the station. I'm a friend of yours. I'm also noted as a historian, although most people say local historian, but I could tell history anywhere. And a writer and an author. But more importantly, I am just someone who loves to tell unknown stories, little-known facts, and I'm enjoying my life. I live in Georgetown. I've been retired now in about 7 years. Former school administrator, former teacher, but I'm enjoying my life, meeting good people like Linda, and doing great projects.
Yeah, awesome. And Miss Linda?
Okay, my name is Linder Renae Greene. I am the author of If You Love Me, my first book. I'm also an herbalist, a life coach, and most importantly, I'm a mother and a grandmother. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for being here. And like you said, If You Love Me on Valentine's Day. So, Ms. Linder, what got you wanting to write a book? What motivated you to just put your life on paper? I mean, it's pretty tough sometimes for people to be so open and candid about things that are going on in their life. So what gave you the courage to do that?
The courage came from looking into my children's eyes whenever I was smaller, or younger rather, and just knowing and letting people know that no matter what type of adversity you go through life, you can always overcome. You cannot allow it to hold you capture as a victim. You have to be victor over the situation, no matter what it is. It may not happen overnight. It's going to take time, but it's a process, and it's a process that you continue working toward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think about like the courage. I different authors who shares like some of the most intimate and most personal parts of their lives, and they do that to help people. And the book If You Love Me that you've written is definitely going to help some people. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about it. I mean, in the beginning, you talk about your relationship with your mom and your grandmother, and you talk about how you're so close to your grandmother, you're like on a side hip, So tell us a little bit about your relationship with your grandmother, and and everything, that kind of. I'm pretty sure she shaped you into being the person that you are today, correct?
Yes, she is. Grandma she was a tough lady. She's little and she's petite, but she was a sweet lady as well. She taught me so many different things, especially on, home remedy and healing the body. And I always wanted to be close to her. She was someone that I admired, having 10 children and, being the excellent woman that she was, taking care of those kids and grandkids and pretty much everyone in the community. If you came in my grandmother's sight, you know what? You will listen or you're going to get away with it. Yeah. It's just that simple. I really idolized her, on how she held everything together. And growing up in the depression that she did, with very little, she didn't graduate from high school or anything. But her and my grandfather, they planted a garden, they raised the chickens and cows and all this type of stuff. But they didn't have a lot of money. But the most important thing they had was love for each other and for family. And that is something she has instilled in all of her children, her grandchildren, or anyone that came in contact with her.
Yeah, I mean, I think about like my grandmother. There was a snippet in a book where you talk about her sweeping a porch. I think about it made me think about my grandmother when I was in elementary school, and like I used to walk to her house, and she used to be sweeping off the patio deck. I could just envision that. That's just such a grandmotherly thing. You just think about, but. just you can tell like the relationship that you had with your grandmother was extremely strong, and it helped you like as far as with your Christian values as well growing up, right?
Yes.
Some of the things you referenced a lot of Bible scriptures, in your book. So tell us how faith has been so an important part of your life, and how that helped shape you as well, right?
Leaning on my faith and God and with the scriptures that I incorporate in the book, it was one of the lessons that I had to lean on because of everything that I've been through. And the older I got, the more I realized that without having your faith and being grounded, you could go astray. No one's perfect. But, I keep thinking back to what my grandma used to say, like on Sundays or during the weekend, when she's outside sweeping the yard with a straw, she's always humming these songs, and she's always saying, Lord, thank you. And when I was young, I'm like, why are you always thanking God? She said, the older you get, the more you understand. And truly, that was such a true statement, because when I got older and started having children on my own and everything that I've been through, it's like, okay, God, his grace and mercy is the thing that keep me from being suicidal or trying to harm myself or harm anyone else, from everything that I've been through. And I had to lean on him and use the guidance of everything that has been taught, not only from my grandmother, but through my mom or family members who was always grounded in their spiritual walk with God. And I feel like that was the thing that kept me the most. It kept me together, that kept me sane.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, having that relationship with God is so important. I grew up in a Baptist church. My grandfather, he's a pastor. I mean, I grew up going to church Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday for choir rehearsal, cleaning up the church, and of course on Sunday. So, I mean, it's so important. But, as you get older and some of the things like you alluded to, you think I'm grown. Look, I ain't got to go to church every Sunday. But, it says, train up a child in which they will go. Right. And once they go older, they'll never depart from it. So despite the fact that some of the things that you've been through, you always knew you can bring it back to the throne. And that was because of them. So that was just absolutely amazing with that. Another thing you mentioned in your books is your ability to get premonitions here, like to be able to to be able to see things before they happen, which is amazing. I mean, you talked about a little bit, a story about the different things that happen. Like I don't want to get into it for people. I want people to read the book and learn more. But when did you find out that you had this ability?
I was really young. I say I was around 4 or 5 years old. That's when things started to appear to me. At that time, I didn't understand, or I would just run around to my mom or my grandma like, hey, I just saw this. Is this going to happen? Or that's going to happen? And, and the more it came to me, the more confused or more scared I became. So she went back and started telling me how things happened whenever I was born. With this veil over my face, which they call it like an extra layer of skin. So you have to pull that off. So, and those things when you're a child or a teenager, when these things start happening, it's kind of scary. Especially when you got people shying away from you, like, no, you get away from me. Right. Don't come tell me anything about me.
Right. Exactly.
But, the more you study and you read scriptures and you started talking to, pastors, and they started explaining things like this to you, then, the more you try to keep a cap on it. And at one point, I don't want this. I don't want to be different. I don't want people looking at me different. I don't want people pointing at me like, hey, you know what? You got to be careful around her. Or some people like, come and tell me what's going on. It doesn't work that way. If God gives you something, then he's giving it to you for a particular reason. And, you go with that. And that's what I did. I finally accept the gift that God has given me, and I just work on it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can understand how that made people feel. But I mean, it's such an amazing, gift that you'll be able to, be able to see things before they happen and stuff. But, and also, just thinking about throughout your book as well. I mean, you talk about, coping with loss. I mean, these type of things, I mean, people go through all the time, as Linder, about, you know, people dealing with loss, you know, loss of family members, loss of children, and you know, you opened up about you know, losing a child, and when you wrote this down, like, how hard was it for you to be able to put this on paper? I mean, because you had to like go back into a moment in time where, I mean, you had to tap into something that was just so emotional. So what gave you the confidence to do that? And did you have to rely on anybody, a support system? Like, what brought you to that moment to be able to put it on paper?
By tapping back into when I was writing the book and tapping back into my spirituality, thinking back to my mom who passed almost 3 years ago, thinking back to my grandmother, to my father, and to the child that died, and the twins that I miscarried with. You know, it brought back, you know, a lot of emotions. There were tears, and I'm like, you know what, God, I can't do this. You know, I can't just go back and open those wounds. It's just like pouring salt on an open wound. But he just kept reassuring me that I got you, and it's not about you. It's about bringing the healing. In order for you to heal, you can have to face the fact. You can have to face the issues head on. And, you know, it was very hard at first, but then, you know, I'm like, okay, girl, suck it up. You know, you can do this. And I keep thinking back to, you know, my children was always my go-to. They were always my strength, and they will always be my strength. And as long as I have them in my life and I know that they look up to me, then I can do anything. And, you know, I have good friends like Steve here, you know, my Aunt Christine, you know, I love her dearly. You know, I love all my aunts and relatives, but, you know, there are special people that I like, entrepreneurs that I call and I lean on, you know, like Reverend Canteen. She's really awesome. And those are the people that I feed off of and that gives me my strength. You know, besides I'm always turning that plate and that spoon down, you know, going into my meditation, going into my fasting. You know, I have to fast for strength.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing what I learned inside this book, I mean, it was so detailed. Like, one thing I can appreciate about this book, and I encourage everybody to pick it up, is you can see the things that you say. Like, normally, like when you read books, it's like you have to kind of interpret it a little bit, but you can actually like envision it. It's almost like you're watching something on television, like the way that you were able to, you know, put that into words, and you can actually just envision. And I think that's just absolutely amazing. And I say when you talked about, you know, the loss of a child, I mean, like I have a 4-year-old son, and I just think about how much he is my world, you know, and how important that is. And you know, you also talked a little bit about, you know, going through marriages and, you know, your first husband, and, you know, and how you all, you know, had a connection, but, you know, you kind of drifted apart a little bit. So for people out there, you know, that's kind of, you know, dealing with, you know, relationships, do you have like any advice for them as far as, you know, holding it together, you know, as far as that? Because I mean, it just seemed like to me like you both were just trying to do the best that you could.
And we did, you know, their father and I, we loved our kids dearly. And there were a lot of sacrifices that we made. And you have to realize, me being a young mom, you know, then a wife at the same time. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but to 3 children. We had already had our son, and then there was the twins. And then, you know, understanding the reasons of why God took one of our daughters, you know, with the medical issues that she had. You know, that was a lot by itself to deal with. And a lot of stress puts strain on marriages. And you have to really realize what is more important to you. You know, is it you need to stay in this marriage for the sake of finance or for the sake of the children? But what about for you and your self-love? You have to first have self-love for yourself before you can actually love someone the way that they deserve and needs to be loved. And I am one that I don't believe in staying in a relationship or a marriage because for the sake of finance or stability. You know, I feel like you're selling yourself short. You know, it's not fair to you and it's not fair to your mate. You know, you guys need to be on the same page. You know, you always got to be evenly yoke. You know, you always got to have the same wants. It's okay to agree to disagree, but you know, you got to be biblically grounded. And that was something that starting out we didn't have, you know, but the older we got, you know, that was more of my thing, is turning more to God and leaning more on him and listening to what he's saying and guiding me through this roadmap called life.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, maintaining a marriage is so important. I mean, I've been married for like 3.5 years, and, you know, I understand like communication is important. I also can see like how, you know, marriages can kind of drift, especially like when you have kids involved, and most of you like focusing on like the kids, and, you know, you can kind of lose sight of that, you know, and it's very important for you to, you know, maintain that level of love and maintain that level of support. Which, you know, still, you know, you talked about, you know, him being involved, which is, you know, a very important thing. But just you were young, you know, when you got married the first time. But the second time, you know, you were a little bit more, you know, older and experienced. Do you feel like, you know, it kind of helped you a little bit, you think, like by going into the second marriage? Do you feel like you felt like you were ready at the time?
Yeah, I felt like I was ready. But there are things that I should have done differently, you know, by me not being perfect. When I sit back and I think about it, you know, we have a tendency of pulling God down off the shelf when we want, or when we're in trouble, when we're in need. And then when things are going good, we put him back on the shelf. And that's something that I think I did for a while, for a period of time. You know, I felt like, hey, my life is going good. And I didn't stay into my meditation. I didn't study my Bible like I should have. But I fell short on some things. And I'm not saying that the marriage was perfect, but it wasn't. Neither one of us were. You know, there are things that we both should have did differently. You know, and when I look back now, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should have did this. Maybe I should have did that. But in open communication, and I would tell anyone, if you're not truly ready to make the sacrifices that it takes for marriage, not only for you, for your children, or for your husband, you have to make time for each other. Even though you have a job, you have a career, you have children, what about you? What about me? What about us? You know, we can't make this work if we're not on the same page, if we're not doing the things that we used to do when we were dating. And then all of a sudden, all that goes out the window. You know, you got to continue wooing me. You know, you did those things when we were dating. So, you know, I want you to continue doing those things. I want you to continue making me feel vibrant, making me feel loved, making me feel beautiful. Yes, we have children and we have all these other things going on, but please don't sacrifice that love that you showed me when we were dating. I need that, because that's what I built my love on for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to continue to reinforce that. I think sometimes, you know, when we're in relationships and we have some years that going by, we have a tendency of like feeling like, oh, they know I love them, you know, like
major mistake.
Right. We know we appreciate them, but I tell you, you know, I mean, sometimes you need affirmation, right? You need, you know, someone to say, I love you, you know, I appreciate you, you know, you're a good person. Like a kind word can go a long way, you know. I often, you know, tell my wife, I say, you know, what we do, you know, inside the house is like, you know, we reassure one another so we can be able to take on the world, right? So you're supposed to, you know, be built up at home, so when you go out there into the world, you can be able to take that on. And if you start to deal with the troubles of the world, you know, by coming home, you know, you can basically refuel up on love, refuel up on support. Those things are like extremely important, of course, you know, in any relationship or any marriage. But of course, like dealing with loss, you know, just, you know, dealing with marriages. I know it brought on levels, you know, of depression and anxiety. Yeah. So how did you cope with those type of things? I mean, I know, like, just dealing with, you know, the loss of your child and you know, in marriage, and you're wondering to yourself, and you even say in your book, like, why is this happening to me? Right. So did you ever find that peace, and where did you find it? Like, once you, you know, kind of found that breakthrough, what made you realize that, you know, I got to make some changes, or, you know, like, where did you find that?
When I realized I stopped questioning and asking the question, why me, and asked the question, why not? Right. Sometimes we are picked out to be picked on. And my peace came when I decided to make my whole focus about, serving God, the person who gives me any and everything, the person who doesn't say no, the person who does not turn their back on me, the person that does not hurt me, the person that always gives me an answer when I go to them. And that's when I started to find the comfort. You know what? Once I continue keeping my faith and walking in the walk that I should go, then this is where my peace gonna come. You have to, again, have that self-love for yourself, and you will have that once you have that relationship with God, knowing that regardless or in spite of, everything that you've been through, He is the one person that can always give you that peace. It can't be in man or woman, it has to be in Him.
Yeah. I mean, you got to depend on God, Like I feel like that's kind of what, things go wrong, like especially like when we feel like, my grandfather often says we use God like an umbrella, right? Yeah. Like when there's no storm and anything like that, we just toss that umbrella in the closet, and then all of a sudden when the rain comes, like we tear up the house looking for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should always be prepared, and always just continue to pray. But of course, like I said, when things are going right, we feel like things are like going in the right direction. We ever tend to slip. But I feel like we, when it comes to prayer, we need to have what we call prayer equity sometimes, like have some prayers, store it up just in case, something was to happen. But, everything that you've been through, like that, there was a reason for that. And the reason came in the form of this beautiful book that you've written. So my final question before we talk about a couple of your engagements as far as with your book, what would you want someone to learn, or what message would you have for a person that's listening to this interview right now that want to pick up this book? What message would you want them to have, as far as this book is concerned?
The message that I will want anyone to take away from the book, or even to purchase the book, to know that there's help, there's peace, and there's also healing. Healing starts with you looking in the mirror and acknowledging that there's something wrong. You cannot continue putting a Band-Aid on a sore. You have to deal with this head on. And whenever you go through adversities in life, you can't just always push it aside. And that's one thing that I did for 52 years. I just pushed it to the side. It's like, you know what, I don't want to deal with that. But in terms of doing that, it was just like this weight that you're carrying on your back, an extra 52 pounds. And once you release that, then you feel light. You feel like you can take on the world, that you can do any and everything that God put before you to do. So the healing has to start with you loving yourself enough to know that you are worthy to go beyond whatever it is that has caused this adversity in your life, whether it be marriage, relationship, job, finance. You can deal with it. Just deal with it head on and move on from there. Don't continue packing it up like you're doing seasonal stuff, like for the winter, putting away your summer clothing. No, just deal with this head on and move on from that point. And first and most importantly, pray and ask God for guidance and knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to get you through whatever turmoil that you're going through. But you have to get the book in order to start the healing process.
Yeah, no doubt about it. If You Love Me, and where can people find this?
You can find it on Amazon. You can go there. I have the link on my social media page, which is on Facebook, which is Linder Renae. I also keep some on hand that you can purchase right now. But I will also be set up in different locations for different book signings that's coming up. Yeah,
and a link will also be available on this video. So for those that are checking this out, you can see it down in the description. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the engagements that you have. We talked to them before we came on about a book signing, and you have a few more coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a book signing coming up at Andrews Library, which is on March 2nd. On March 9th, I will be set up in Charleston at the Black Expo. March 14th, I will also be speaking at Hope Health location in Florence. There are several different Hope Health locations that they have already spoke to me about speaking at different engagements. I've also been invited to Around the Table Talk in Columbia through the Minority Affair in Columbia, and my book has also been inducted into State Library in Columbia.
Okay, well, a lot of stuff going on there, and that, I mean, all this stuff is just absolutely great. I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, you put in a lot of hard work. I mean, you're very open, and people are going to feel this. I mean, I already told you this. I'm gonna just say it on record. People are going to feel this. You know, people that deal and cope with loss and, you know, and also finding themselves are going to be able to like really feel this book. And I really do appreciate your time. And thank you so much, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, since you mentioned the word feel this, as a writer, as an author, I've worked with many other authors and writers. But when Linda approached me and showed me her manuscripts, I read it and I almost instantly resonated with it. Why? Because I understood it was ministry. The entire book is a testimony. And with so much going on, Valentine's Day or any other day, with our young ladies and young people, period, suicide is up, fat shaming, all kinds of things is going on because of social media. So as Linda so aptly said, anything that cannot breathe, if you cover it up, it cannot heal. This is a 50-some-odd-year scab that she was keeping to herself. Why? Because culturally, the whole saying is what happens in the family stays in the family. Well, that's not always the best advice. And when I tell you ministry, this is, what is it? I don't know how many pages is it, Linda?
117.
100, almost 200 pages of testimony. So if you are one of those persons that knows an individual that is going, even if you don't know it, if you have a young lady or somebody, I don't care whether it's the loss of a child, I don't care whether it's a miscarriage, I don't care whether it's a heart attack, I don't care whether it's molestation, she has gone through it all. But this is the process of healing. It's a ministry. And yes, she has the gift of prophecy and other things like that. But as you can tell, she has a humble spirit. And for her to put this out there like this, it's not easy because it's not for everybody. Some people, and lastly, when she and I were collaborating on this, I helped her format it. But I was calling her every day saying, Linda, I'm broke down crying. I'm in front of my computer and I couldn't have enough tissue. Because going in the hospital and having them be told, well, you know, you lost your child. And it was 10 days. I mean, it's a lot to this. And I encourage anybody to get the book and read the entire book. Don't stop at the first chapter because it gets sweeter after the 5th chapter. But you have to be able to resonate with it. You know, it's a ministry. It's a testimony. I am very proud of her.
Yeah. I mean, this is a spiritual cleansing. You know, you can just tell by, you know, just reading the book is a spiritual cleansing. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Williams, I mean, what you alluded to, I mean, people deal with depression, anxiety.
Yes.
And, you know, growing up, you know, as a kid, they used to tell you, like, toughen up, you know, as a boy, be a man about it, you know, like, or, you know, like, or if you're dealing with something, parents like, I got all these bills, I got to take care of. But, I mean, kids go through, like, so much, you know, I think about that, you know, sometimes. And also just adults, like, looking at what other people have on social media.
Right.
You know, putting your personal, I guess, your life up against people highlights. You know, sometimes that can be a little bit stressful.
Well, you mentioned you have a son. I have 2 daughters. One's in her 30s, the other's in her 40s. They don't come up to me, and I'm not comfortable talking really, really personal stuff. But I said to Lynn, I said, I got to get my daughters these books because I don't know if they've ever been molested, or I'll use the R word. They're not going to tell me that. They may not even tell their mother. So this is a testimony. This is ministry that you can get through it with the help of God.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Once again, If You Love Me is available on Amazon right now. Thank you so much, Ms. Linder Renae, Mr. Steve Williams. Appreciate it once again. And make sure you all pick it up. Book signings are going to be coming up really, really soon. And make sure that you come on out. Get that autograph.
Give you her phone number?
Yeah.
Wants to call you.
If you want to call me, you can reach me at area code 864-283-1991. Again, that's 864-283-1991.
Yeah, and make sure you reach out and make sure you buy the book once again. This is 90.9 FM, Radio Baha'i, Miss Linder Renae, and Mr. Steve Williams. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Fill your day with joy and happiness here on 90.9 FM, Radio Baha'i. Streaming at radiobaha'i.us.